Blanky time, Blanky time. It's almost time for Blanky time. Come along and take our hands. We're going to Blanky Land.
I would like in the future. I didn't even get my thingy. Just look at beans. I would like in the future for us to have like a couch, like
That'd be great.
love seat size.
I like
It's
that.
like even at the roastery, it's like
Yeah.
we have
still
about
like-
this much space of this
Right.
cushion
Right.
between us.
Yeah, it's nice being
Our-
side by side.
Our
This was the-
homosexual nature can't flourish 100%.
You know, this was originally how Blanky Time started, was us on a love seat
Where with a blanket.
with a blankie. So
Yeah.
I think it's true to form. This is a new recording location for me. I know you
Yeah,
recorded here
I've
before.
done
You've done at least one here. Maybe another one.
one or two. I don't know. We've made it past 20. You know.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. 20
Excited.
episodes.
That's a big deal, man.
We are
It's a big deal.
steadily not growing.
It's all right though. We love the faithful.
Yeah, you know, it's like the motto about the 3 years.
No.
So like they say like the first year is the crawl, the second year is the walk,
Okay.
and the third year is the sprint.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So we're still crawling.
Yeah, we're still crawling this bad boy.
We're still crawling. Have we even started crawling yet, or are we still like just kind of flailing on the floor, hoping that one day we'll be able to get it?
I mean, we have consistent listeners. Now, that may be comprised of, like, my mom and 2 other people.
We love you, Mom.
But,
My mom's definitely not listening to this, so
you know, that's we
yeah.
have some consistency
Yeah.
there. Gabe, who did one of there's a Gabe special edition edit
Yeah.
on YouTube that's
The
very
edit.
good. He's going
he
to
stopped
college.
listening. Oh,
No.
okay.
He's going to college in California, and
It's a good state.
he said that once he gets set up there with everything, he should be able to like edit our videos more consistently, and
pretty
also
dope,
kind of get
yeah.
like some cred. So I'm looking forward to that because that'd be nice.
Same. Yeah, be pretty.
Yeah,
because
because you edit videos all the time, Matt, don't you?
I
just-
don't.
Grind into the night to make sure they're complete and.
That would be you, all you. And my excuse is I just number one, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to that. Number two, way too busy, way overcommitted. But here we are,
Yeah.
and
We getting it done.
life is good. We get it done, and you guys love it. At least 8 of you.
Yeah.
And that's okay with us because Jesus had 12. One of them killed him. So, it can't
he
get
had
much
more than 12,
well,
but he
yeah,
had
well, you
12
know what I
core
mean.
homies.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We got more than 8. But you know who you are. And we're thankful for you. And if one of you end up stabbing us in the back, it's okay. We
I
love
don't know
you
how
anyway.
they could do that, but, it's
Look,
possible.
The metaphor breaks down.
Anything's possible.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Stab you in the back and kill you.
Yikes. That's a great segue into what we're talking about today.
Oh, yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about death because, we don't talk about it enough in Western society. It has been a shunned part of our culture. Wipe your hands clean, turn your head away, don't get involved.
Yeah.
And it's I think part of the reason why we have, one, such an unhealthy relationship with death, but two, just unhealthy relationship with life.
Ooh.
And how you live your life in general.
Yeah, you can't live well if you don't know how to
Yeah.
die well.
And
So,
I've had,
I'm trying to choke you with my cord here.
I've had opinions and stuff on it. When I suggested
You got
this,
opinions on death?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to hear those.
The whole topic of it. It's just that when I suggested it, I was kind of just like my ADHD brain was like ping ponging around. So
Yeah. I got you.
I'm not prepared as always, but we'll get her done.
Hey, man, that's what makes the best episodes.
Episodes. Grammar time.
I do think that our culture does like to pretend like death, or ignore death to the point. Distraction is a great way to ignore the inevitable thing that awaits us all. But yeah, I'm stoked to hear your thoughts on propaganda of death.
The death conspiracy. I actually have some conspiracies about death.
Of course you do.
So
very excited to hear.
At least that relate to them. But how do you wanna kick this off? Kick it off.
How do you want to kick it off? I'm down to talk about whatever. So, okay, what exactly do you mean when you say death?
Physical death. Like your body's
Your
died.
body is dead. It's done. It shuts down.
Yeah.
Stops breathing. Your heart stops beating.
Yeah.
And you are no more.
No more electrical impulses being sent from your brain to the rest of your body.
Yeah.
Because you can be brain dead, and I think at that point you actually are dead even though your body's alive. It's just being artificially kept alive. Most of the time just so that way like your organs are fresher if you're going to like have them
harvested.
Harvested is what I was going to say, but there's a more PC term these days.
Donated?
There's another one. Because I know this lady that she was like a chaplain at the organ donor collection area of the hospital.
Are you an organ donor?
I think so. I actually have some friends. Mainly it's like my black friends. They were like, don't get the organ donor thing.
Someone told me that.
Yeah.
And so I took mine off.
Because I was like...
But I feel terrible now.
Yeah, I was like, why? And he was like, well, like, say you could be, resuscitated or whatever, and then they see on your license, he's an ogre, he's a organ donor, and then they'll just be like, let him die.
We
so
need
we have
these eyes.
And I was like, I've never thought about that, and I don't know if that's...
I don't know if that's how it works.
Because that's against HIPAA. One of the, doctor contracts or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. Someone told me that. And so when I got my license renewed, like I was like...
You took it
18,
off?
and I was like, yeah, let's take that off. And I just never put it back. But, I mean...
Do you have DNR on your license?
No.
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 That's typically something I think, like, once you make it to, like, 65, then you get DNR put on your license.
Yeah.
I think it maybe should be mandatory.
Really?
Yeah, maybe.
So stop.
Because there's a lot of geezers trying to hold on to life, which is their unhealthy relationship with death and all that stuff. And
maybe
they're getting resuscitated over and over and over again, when really it's probably going to be good to just let natural causes take over like it already was trying to do, instead of trying to step in and play God.
Right.
You know? And so if you have a do not resuscitate,
Yeah, my grandmother had that, or at least one of them. And, yeah, I mean, I'm not against it. I might get it. I don't know. Death is scary for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because of an unhealthy relationship. But, to your point earlier, I don't think it's possible to live well until we learn how to die well. What does that look like? And is there anything in our lives that the inevitable death awaiting us does not destroy? I got really deep. I didn't mean it to be that deep.
This can be a deep episode.
Yeah.
It's like a roller coaster, baby. We go
stoked.
all over the place.
Yeah, I'm dying to get into today.
I'm dying to talk to you today.
Dying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that's like something I was thinking about more recently, because in my recent studies of the Bible, in the Gospels, there's a lot of misinterpretation or added crap that is just a part of the Western Christian psyche that actually doesn't add up biblically. And so one of those things is I will one of those things is like the belief that once saved always saved. I was 4 years old and gave my life to Jesus, and then that's that, and I don't have to do anything else. But that's not really accurate, because a lot of your belief in Jesus is by the practice of following him, which is certain ways how you live your life,
which involves doing things.
And yes, it's
following is an active
action based, which the actions are solely reflective of your position of your heart. And if you're treating Jesus as a get out of jail free card, and you're like, oh, I believe in him, but you live your life non-sanctified or biblically, then I don't think you're saved. Which is a bold thing to say. Which then, let me cap this off, and then I'll let you talk. Sorry. So then that leads to, all these people who say they were saved. Were they actually saved? And like, I made a joke recently about like, well, maybe the Jehovah's Witness had it right about a limited quantity that
144,000.
I don't think it's that extreme, but it's like there's probably a lot less people going to the next phase of life, which we can get into, rather than what traditionally Westerners would believe about faith and death. Does that make sense? Was that cohesive?
I mean, that's cohesive. I think you look at the story of Jesus and the rich young ruler. Dude comes to him and he's like, Jesus, what good thing do I have to do to inherit eternal life? Well, we all know the correct answer here in the West, which is you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is believe in your heart and pray this prayer, and you'll be saved. But Jesus doesn't do that.
You don't have to think about it again.
Right. You don't even have to worry about it. Jesus does not say that. And we're reading it. We're like, Jesus, you got it wrong, man. Come on. Instead, he says, well, keep the commandments. And he's like, well, I already did that. He's like, all right, well, get rid of everything. Give it to the poor, then follow me. And so even his answer is action-based. It's, we believe with the way we live our lives, basically. So, to your point. Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's how in the Old Testament the ancient Hebrews were saved, was because of how they conducted themselves and set themselves apart wholly from the rest of all the different neighboring people groups, because it does go back to the heart, right? And so if you're one of those people that's like once saved always saved, but you've continued a fear of God in your heart and walked your life out, then you've done the right things. Your semantics and beliefs of how you were actually saved were probably not wholly completed in your understanding.
Even how we understand salvation, the Greek word for salvation is the same word for healing. So to say you are saved, Jesus brings, salvation is to say that he brings healing to us. So as saved people, it means we're healed from whatever, trauma. Obviously, we still have trauma. We still have things in our life, but the very root for salvation, is that Jesus brings healing. And for us to, if you're healed, you're not still, you might still be walking with a limp, but your leg's not falling off anymore, or if that makes sense. So the way that we actually walk out every day is going to be different, and that it's not just a head thing,
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so Christianity's basically just a death cult.
Basically.
Kind of, which,
It's turned into that, right? Or you think it is?
Well, it should be.
Right, because we want to die.
Yeah.
Why?
So that way we can So this is the dichotomy, right? It's like
Uh-huh.
we can't wait to die because that means we won't have to live in this one sinful world anymore, or this sinful flesh, and we'll be able to become more holy and be with the Creator in the great heavenly waiting place until the full new heaven and earth is rebuilt and completed. However, that doesn't mean like, oh, let me skip in line. You know, that because we are called to be angels, messengers to others.
Right.
To try to get as many buddies as we can into the new heaven and new earth. So it's not like you're trying to die because you want to end your life to get out of the situation. You can't wait to die because of how good and complete it's going to be, but you also have to live your life on earth and try to enjoy it and serve God.
Yeah. So what's the meaning of life then? If that is the end goal, what does life matter for?
So, the meaning of life.
Meaning of life. If death is all that awaits us.
I mean, Ecclesiastes got it nailed down pretty good, which is kind of what I was saying.
Can't argue with that.
Before you asked it, you know, it's like the meaning of life is to serve your God and be in relationship with Him. Love the people around you and your community. Do good work, but don't overwork because that's toil. It's pointless.
Yeah.
And then finally, be okay to die.
I think we can end the podcast there. That is a great summation.
20-minute podcast, baby.
That's everything I was going to say. But, I mean, that's the truth. Like, if death is coming for us all, which it is, that's scary for a lot of people. Even, I think, in my own life, like, I'm not ready to die. Like, I get it that there's hope after death, but there's still that within you that's like, man, I want to, be with my family and, like...
Jump out of an airplane.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to go next month or this month.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where at?
Yeah.
Oak Island?
No, we're gonna do the one local because that's too expensive.
They got a local one you can jump out of?
Yeah.
Where the heck do you land?
I think it's like Lewisburg.
Oh yeah, there's
Not
nothing
that
out in
local,
Lewisburg.
Yeah,
you can
there's
probably
nothing out
land somewhere in Lewisburg because there's nothing.
Yeah, that's where I went. That's where I went before. It's just
Yeah.
it's like $100 cheaper.
That's sweet.
But yeah, no, but like without a healthy view of death and what that looks like, a doorway to the next phase of existence, whatever that may be. For us, we have hope in Jesus. For some people, they don't know, and it's like this big thing of uncertainty, which can lead to a lot of intimidation and trepidation about the future. You can't really live well, though, until you understand that. And so, yeah, Ecclesiastes nails it, man. Like, work hard, work with your hands, do good work, don't overwork. And that's a tough balance to have. But enjoy good things, good food, good wine, like the gifts that God has given us.
As little tastes of what it'll be like in the new earth.
And then just love people well, which is pretty much everyone listening right now is having a hard time doing that, I think. Myself included, not all the time.
You're not loving me.
Oh, I love you so much. I love my family, but sometimes I'm a jerk to them, right? And it's like, how do we have that perspective as we live that, memento mori.
Yeah.
We're going to die.
Memento mori.
And there's this practice that I believe it was like the Benedictine tradition of monks kept, which was, we've seen like the skull, like on, like the edge of a desk or something, or like Shakespeare and his like, well, it was the monks that actually started that.
To be or not to be?
That is the question. But the monks started that, and so they basically, like, you'd walk by a desk, and skull is sitting on the edge of the monk's desk. Well, that wasn't just something from Hobby Lobby. That was Brother Lawrence that died last year. And they would actually keep pieces of former monks around the monastery as a reminder that death is coming for everyone, and how we live actually matters in that respect. And so there would also always be an empty grave, an empty hole, like a plot, open, so that as they're walking,
they go ahead and prep the next one.
Well, and as they're walking through the prayer garden, they look over and say, "Oh, I could be next. Yeah, that could be mine tomorrow."
Fall in.
Like, yeah, and so that's that's the, I don't know. I think it's a good perspective to have. Is like, death is coming. How we live matters. Like, just love people, man. This will be over in a blink. I mean, my kid just turned 4.
Don't blink.
Right.
Just like that, you're 6 years old and you take a nap and you
I don't know all the words.
Go outside and eat bugs and you go in the house and you poop on the rug. Don't blink.
Basically that. But I mean, dude. Don't blink, because it flies by, and yeah, it's all gonna be over soon. So what do we do with it? And is the stuff that we get upset about really gonna matter? So I'm trying to take a more humble approach to life in general, that maybe I don't have it all figured out, and I have issues with control and spontaneity and just doing random things, on a whim, and letting things get under my skin when they don't go my way, and I gotta let some of that go, because what is life really for? And like you said, it's to love people and be here in the moment and help others and point people to Jesus, and so that when it does come for time for us to get the do not resuscitate on the license, we're okay with that, because we've lived the story that we wanted to, and there is something in our life, a legacy that's going to outlive us, that has nothing to do with what we did, but who we were. And
plus, will be eventually forgotten.
Yeah, everybody and everything you've ever done is eventually going to be forgotten. Yeah. Like the TV, bro. You know the guy who invented the TV? What was his name?
I think we've done this before,
right,
and
exactly.
I already forgot.
Yeah, exactly. No one knows, but every house in the world, right?
Señor Telenovela.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy, man. Crazy. We all gonna die.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time.
That's part of my my gripe with geezers. And I said, I'm being generic here. It's not every single boomer geezer out there, okay? But
you talk a lot of hate.
It's a decent
on the geezers.
Yeah, I do. It's a decent amount of them that are just kind of holding on for dear life, literally.
Yeah.
And there's some of them that really they're just costing their families money, the frickin' country money, and all that jazz. And it's like, it's just.
So you think
really
we should just send all the old people to death homes?
Hospice houses?
No, like some countries do that. I feel
where they cap them?
Yeah.
I think, natural causes will take over. Just because, like, most of the time when it's about time for someone to pass, if they don't have other crud, like medication and machines and all this stuff, keeping them artificially alive, then I don't think it's necessary to have, like, the, midsummer cap when you turn 70, you have to frickin' jump off a cliff and get your head bashed open by a club. I don't think that's necessary, because, if you are a healthy older person you probably aren't on all that crud, which means you've taken better care of your body. You've been a steward of your body. You've treated it like a temple, keeping it clean.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
All that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you abused your vessel, that's on you.
Right. Yeah.
You're either going to pay for it now or you're going to pay for it later, like we were talking about, And paying for it later is, you don't get as much time on this earth. And you've made that decision. But either way, eventually, you are going to die. And people, don't want to think about that or do that. They want to, make it the bastard child that nobody ever looks at, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think to your point about old people, geezers.
Geese Nation.
It's rare to meet an older person that is not a terrible person. When you think about it, terrible to be around, and not a terrible person. We don't know them, but grumpy, mean. Especially if you don't know them, you just see someone out in public and they're just like, get out of my way.
And it's typically the boomers, like silent generation. They're good.
Yeah,
those are the supreme geezers. Those are good geezers. Boomer geezers, they're terrible, dude.
I hate the boomers
most of the time.
But I think the reason for that has a lot to do with their perspective of what you were saying before about salvation, the evangelical story in the West, that it doesn't really matter lifestyle once you've said a prayer and done this salvation thing. You're sealed by the blood of the Lamb, and life's good. Just live it up, do whatever. I feel like evidence for a grumpy old person is that their lifestyle, the type of person they became, was influenced by the choices they made on a daily basis, which wasn't to be more loving or kind or generous or patient or peaceful. And so for us, we look at that, and yes, death is coming, but I feel like for a person that has given their life to peace and patience and kindness and love and joy and gentleness, goodness, self-control, when it comes to that point, they're ready because their life is their story to because Dallas Willard said something to the effect of, we are becoming every day who we will be for eternity. So the idea that on one respect, you can get saved and then live how you want and die a grumpy, hateful old Christian. That doesn't add up, because what makes you think that magically when life is over that you are going to be happy with being with Jesus when you lived your whole life like a terrible human being?
Yeah, you can either age like fish or you can age like wine.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so his point was just things we do on a daily basis end up making us who we're going to be for the rest of our lives, for the rest of eternity with Jesus. And so the idea that you're just going to magically be a happy, great, kind, soul, angelic creature after death is BS. If that's not the type of person you were on earth when you were here on your daily interactions with people. So
yeah, because if you really believe in the transfer of spirit, you don't become a completely different person when your spirit comes out of your vessel, right?
Yeah.
And it's that's the thing is old geezers would get, and even younger people would get attached to the idea of I can't die because I'm gonna miss out on this person and these kids growing up and my grandkids and whatever. And it's well, if you really believed like you say you do,
right,
you're gonna be able to still see what's going on, or it's gonna be so great where you're at, you're not gonna care about that And then when they get there, you're going to be like, yo, what's up? Welcome to the party. I've
Right.
missed you.
Yeah. It's definitely going to put it in perspective either way. I think a lot of people just get hung up on it now, and like, you know, when it comes to the reality of like consciousness, I guess,
Yeah.
of like what makes up us, and does it continue? And even for people that don't really buy the whole Jesus story,
There's still science that
like,
backs up there's some kind of
that there's
expelling of energy that
Yeah.
happens when you die.
well, and there's something about us that is more than meets the eye. Like our essence isn't just our body or our heart beating or even our brain. There's something that goes beyond all that, and like, you know, call it spirit, call it consciousness, whatever. We don't know. You know, people, we're still trying to figure that out. So even people that don't subscribe to Jesus can't deny that there's something about us that has to live on. You know, and what does that look like? Well, the Bible isn't really all that clear
Yeah.
on it.
It's just a couple
There's
passages. Not
3
very
or
much.
4 verses in the entire Bible that describe what life after death might possibly be like. And would you believe that there's nothing about heaven in there? What we think of when you think of heaven, what comes to your mind?
Well, that's why I said the great waiting place.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Because, you know, going to the pearly gates and the streets of gold and the mansions, that's kind of all
Jumbled together in this, like,
ooblar.
weird.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not really the true heaven, because the true heaven actually is the new earth,
Right.
where the spiritual and the physical
What
are
does heaven mean?
melded with and mingled, and basically, you know, the Catholics kind of had it half right
With the purgatory
with
thing.
purgatory, except they were like, insert card
Yeah.
or select payment type, and then, you know, if you do that, then you can get out of there faster and go on to the next level.
Yeah. No, yeah. Ronald Rolheiser, actually, is a Catholic writer and priest, and he his explanation of purgatory is probably the closest thing to me to like possibly get me to believe it. You know, I don't, but his whole thing was like, yeah, well, the idea behind purgatory is that for some of us when we die, like, we aren't fully perfected into the image of Jesus. We haven't given our time and our days and our moments to becoming more like him, and so purgatory is the place where the rest of our selfish nature gets purged as we await the new heaven and new earth. And like the way he said it was much more eloquent and beautiful than that. But like his idea is like, yeah, you're right. We are becoming who we're going to be for eternity. And some of us, when we go, we're not there yet. And purgatory is that place that kind of helps perfect us and purge us of those lasting things. And I thought it was beautifully said. But yeah, they kind of
it's always
kind
been
of screwed it with the
second chancey for me
payment.
though, and it's, at least to my understanding, there's not really a whole lot of second chance, because it's like you've had your whole life as a chance to,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
turn your heart and your soul and mind and whatever all towards the fear and love of God.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So you asked me a couple questions. Let me ask you a question.
Ask away, dear friend. I have more questions than answers, but I
Inquisitive mind you have, young man.
Yes. Well, Jesus asked more questions than he was ever answered. So
Socrates. You ever read that short story where a guy wrote in the perspective of Socrates and Socrates, if y'all don't know?
right.
And running the perspective of Socrates, because, you know, he kind of lived sort of right before Christ, decently close.
Yeah.
And I've said right from his perspective like 1,000 times, but basically where he's seeing Christ for who he is, and this philosopher dude, or the author or whoever who wrote this, kind of went through the Socratic method of how Socrates would think about and believe in Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting.
Interesting. I haven't read that.
Yeah, I think it's called If Socrates Met Jesus or whatever. Yeah,
There's been sounds like something I would enjoy reading.
Yeah, there's been a couple churches that have put on like cheesy plays of it.
Dude, Christian art is the worst. That should be a whole podcast episode.
Bad Christian art.
Make better things, Christians. Music, art, movies. Quit sucking it up.
The Sound of Freedom.
Do a better job.
That was pretty good.
Do a better job. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it yet. I'm talking about you, God's Not Dead. I'm talking about you, everything on Pure Flix. Get it right. I'm talking about you, contemporary Christian music, bro. Just quit. Just stop while you're
Stop
ahead.
making the same song over and over again.
I don't even have to know I'm on a Christian station to hear 3 chords and know that I'm on a Christian station. Like, dude, no wonder people don't listen to you.
Except homeschoolers.
God, just do better. Just do better. Jesus deserves better. Anyway.
All right. So my question is, what has your experience with death been like? And also, like, how do you cope with it? Like, do you have like a specific thing that you do or think about that, or, you know, something like that helps you cope with a death?
I don't cope very well. The way I cope with most things is to pretend like they didn't happen. That's my trauma response. But death has, I've seen a fair share of death. I mean, obviously older people in my life dying.
Younger people. I know you and me both have.
Yeah, younger people
we've known that have died, passed away.
Had a really close. Was close to both of my grandmothers, but one, I was a little closer with her, and she passed away after receiving a cancer diagnosis, within a year of the cancer diagnosis. And so that was like really tough. I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I could prepare for it. But that was really difficult. And then my other grandmother, about a year later, maybe it's probably a little more than a year later, very suddenly, in perfect health, was a passenger in a car at a ministry thing. She was delivering food to people in recovery, and the lady driving ran a stop sign, and the car flipped, and she very suddenly died.
Dang.
And that, I think, hit me harder. And we weren't as close as I was with this other grandma, but I guess it was like the lack of closure, maybe, or just the like finality of it, that it just happened. We couldn't see the body because it was that messed up.
Yeah.
And well, I couldn't. My father did, but so that hit me really tough. But with older people, it's coming a lot of times, and like it's easy to kind of mentally prepare for that. But I always find myself at a funeral, like trying to, I always end up thinking about my funeral and what I don't want that to be like, what cheesy music I don't want
no
playing.
Nickelback at your funeral.
I've never been to a funeral with Nickelback, but I've been to plenty of funerals with old hymns of like Andy walks with me and he talks with me, and the pastor preaching like, if you ever want to see Matt again, say this prayer. And I'm like, dude, come on, bro. Like, I don't like. And so, like, that always puts it in perspective, like, okay, well, this is what I don't want. But then it gets me thinking on, like, life and, like, man, what do I want to be known for? What are people really going to say about me? Because right now it just feels like I'm consumed with work and I don't make time for people, and I'm really not that great of a friend, and, like, all the flaws start coming up.
Man,
like,
that's very introspective.
And it's like, but then, like 2 weeks ago, my brother-in-law, basically, it's a complicated situation, but he had a stroke at 44, and within the week was dead. And
Did you tell me about that?
I think y'all were out of town when everything happened.
When everything happened?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was like, I don't think I've heard that yet.
Yeah. So this
Dang.
is the guy who raised my nephew. So, long story short, my nephew's 16.
Sorry to bring up a topic that was kind of
No,
close
man,
to home.
it's all good, man.
It
has been a very introspective few weeks, the last couple weeks. Yeah, because we didn't meet, 2 weeks ago or last week. So, yeah. So he, because he hadn't passed away yet. You're right. Last time we saw each other, he had the stroke, I think, but I don't think he'd passed away. But anyway, yeah, my nephew's 16. But his mom and this guy John, basically, raised him from like a year old, 2 years old or whatever. So the last 14 years or so has been in this, Noah's dad, and great dude, man. Like, we weren't close to where we're talking every couple days, or but every few months a text, or every time I'd see Noah would go on vacations with us still, and very much a part of our lives. It's kind of like a rough and tough dude, not a very sentimental guy, but like, yeah, for whatever reason it hit me really hard. He was an honest guy, strong dude, and just a good dad to Noah, good dad to his other kids. They have 4 or 5, I think 4, between him and Jennifer. And so yeah, man, like his funeral was last week, and sitting there, man, same thing, just like thinking back on my life and how, he smoked and he drank and he didn't, but he's 44.
Yeah.
I'm not too far away.
Yeah.
And what could happen? Like, what's gonna happen with my kids? Because now he's got like a 5-year-old at home, and a 9-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and a 15-year-old. Like,
yeah,
what's gonna happen to them now? And Jennifer isn't working, and so anyway, to get a little personal, but that really hit with me. Just puts it into perspective that life is super short, man. And I don't know. I've had friends. I had a friend at 18 drown, and very suddenly it was the middle of football season. He went to the lake one weekend and was racing a buddy and just went under and never came back up. Another kid went jumping off a bridge and into the Neuse River and hit his head on something, and they found him a week later. And death has been it's been around in my life, and I think it's in those moments that it just brings it into like focus that this is all so fragile, and that everything that we hold dear, everything we're chasing, and like every hope, every dream, like it could all just be erased in a moment. Noah had just pulled in the driveway, knocked something out from like under his like car. Like they have like a little bump in their driveway, and hit something on the bottom of the car and knocked the fuel tank loose. And so John comes outside to like help him with it. He ran in and told him, and that's when it happened. Just had a stroke. Didn't wake up again.
Yeah.
Basically a coma for the next few days until he passed. And like, what was the last thing he said to Noah, or like, trying to make every word count for me, like the conversations I have, especially with my family. And, I don't know, man. It's very sobering to think of, like, we're not promised tomorrow or another minute. And, hopefully it's inspiring me to care a little less about dumb things that don't really matter, and care a little more about like little moments. Like, yesterday I took off work and spent the day with Nora for her birthday, and we just drove around town and did silly stuff with splash pad, ate pink macaroons, and played games and did Legos and drew pictures and watched unicorn movies. And You know,
Epic Dad Day.
trying to do a lot more of that and
Yep.
a lot less of the stressing over stuff that's gonna pass anyway. You know, so anyway, yeah. Experience with death. It's coming for everyone,
Yeah.
and it just.
And I think in even like those kind of situations and things, the way at least American culture is like, you know, after that, the body's just put into a box and you don't see it, and you try not to think about it or anything like that. But and the family's rarely involved with that whole process. Like, that's one thing that was cool about when my grandfather passed away is, you know, my dad, he did most of it, but I helped him build my grandfather's casket, which is, you know, something the family would have traditionally done for a long time. And, you know, having that week or couple days of, you know, preparing a place for the body is just such a unique and healing kind of process to go through. And that's one thing that, like, I don't know what it is about me. Maybe I'm weird, but ever since I was a kid, I think it's because, I guess I can talk about that. I've always needed to see the body to fully feel like that thing, like an animal or that person had passed, right?
No, I get that.
And that probably came from, so when I was like in kindergarten or preschool or whatever, so I was like, you know, what's that age, like 6 or 7?
Yeah, probably like 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Yeah, 5 or 6. My like best buddy in kindergarten died in his sleep. And I remember my parents gave me a choice to like go to the funeral or not. And I wasn't going to go, and then at the last minute I just decided to go for some reason. And the whole funeral, the only thing I was thinking was like, where's he at? And I remember at one point I asked my mom or dad, like, you know, where's his body? Like, where's he at? Where is he at? And my parent, you know, answered, they're like, oh, you know, he's up in that, you see that white box by the Christmas tree, because he had they decorated a Christmas tree with like all his Pokemon cards and stuff.
Oh man.
And there's, you know, this little white kind of, you know, traditional casket or whatever. And they're like, oh, his body's in that. And I was kind of just like confused, because it was really my first funeral I ever went to.
Yeah.
But kind of from that, like, for a long time it was hard for me to wrap my mind around like he was actually dead, because, you know, I never saw his dead body.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that's kind of lost in American culture is, you know, you don't see the body, you don't prepare it, you don't prepare a place for it. And so I think those practices, which even, you know, in never mind. That's just been something that's been a part of ancient culture for such a long time.
Yeah.
And to get rid of that, I think, really messes with people's relationship with death.
Yeah, we kind of like sublet that out to mortuaries and, you know, cemeteries, and they do all that for us, which I get on one respect. But I mean, even I was reading, Rainn Wilson has a book I think I was telling you about. It's about spirituality, believe it or not. It's pretty interesting, coming from Dwight Schrute. But
I don't know who that is.
Dwight, you never watched The Office?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The guy with the glasses, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He's been on, like, I listened to a podcast with him and Theo Vaughn, and he was kind of talking about his new spirituality adventures and stuff. And
Yeah,
it was
the
really
book,
cool.
the book's really good. It's called Soul Boom. But I mean, he's like from part of the Baha'i tradition, I think is what it is, which I wasn't familiar with it, but basically
sounds like they eat raw fish.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, it's one of those that are they're kind of like down with all
like new
religions.
agey type.
Yeah, it's kind of like
stuff.
that. I mean, it's a fairly recent, 1800s, I think, is when it came to be. But in their tradition, like he was talking about when his father passed away, and part of the Bahi tradition is like you wash the body and prepare it for burial yourself, and you'll there's prayers to recite and different meditations and things like as you prepare the body, and you'll use like a specific bowl for the cleansing for the water. And so he was just talking about like his journey when his father passed and got to the funeral home, and he was going to do the washing and preparing the body, and he didn't have like a bowl for it, and so he asked the attendant, and they were like, "Oh, look around," and like he found like a Taco Bell cup from the back like that they had and he's like, "I'm about to prepare my dad's body for burial with a Taco Bell cup." And so he's like, "Nah." So he ends up going to Target and like finding one, but like even then he was just talking about like
How did they not have a bowl there?
Right. I don't know. It was sketchy funeral home.
Weird.
But anyway, he ends up getting one from Target. But his whole thing was like, for him, that was the closure. Like, spending a day, cleaning the body, preparing it for burial, for the funeral. And then, I'm sure it is healing for a lot of, and I'm sure it's really painful for a lot of people too. But I think
that's part of the healing.
Exactly. We're afraid to go through the hard stuff. I mean, we live in like a fast food culture, man.
Yeah.
Like everything we want is at the tip of our fingers, and we don't like to do hard things. And what that's done is just make us hollow people. There's no depth to people anymore, and our culture as a whole is hollow.
It's about to get more hollow because it's the same culture that is now coming up with Amazon Alexa software to use your loved one's voice. So you just like...
Yeah, that was a Black Mirror episode. It did not end well. So...
Yeah, it just has, you get your loved one to say a couple words and boppity boop, Alexa is now granddad, and he can talk to you forever.
Yeah, that's
in the trippy, though, AI man. Mind fire.
Like, I get it, though. Like, they, you want,
they're just holding people on, white knuckling it. It's so annoying to me.
Yeah, but I think, and that's where leaving a legacy really does, like, for me at least, like, that's something I want to do. Like, I don't need to do a bunch of things, but I want the relationships that I've developed to outlive me, and that like my kids and my grandkids are going to hear stories about me, and my great grandkids are going to hear stories about like the person I was, not necessarily the things I did or accomplished, or how many freaking lattes I made, or coffee bags I sold. And it's like, that's not really going to matter, but who I am and who my kids become and who their kids become and what they know of me, hopefully is going to be, something that outlives me and speaks for itself. And I think that's the, like, where we can have a healthy perspective on death, is like living well leads to dying well in most cases, whereas like living poorly is why we want to hang on for so long. And I'm not saying I'm ready to die right now, because again, that's tough. There's a lot I don't want to let go of.
Yeah. That's understandable.
And especially like situations like, John at 44, very suddenly, like you don't see that coming. Like no one wakes up thinking today's the day. But it's like a sobering reminder that we are like a vapor or a breath. It's like we're here and we're going to be gone way longer. We're going to be dead a lot longer than we were ever alive. And there's going to come a day when no one remembers us. And that's okay.
On this earth.
Right. And that's okay. It has to be okay, because that's the way it is. And, we just got to find a way to make our 60 years worth it, or whatever we get.
If we go Amish, we can probably get up to almost 100.
All right. Who's that guy who made bulletproof coffee? He's
with
trying to like live forever.
The butter and coconut oil.
Yeah, but like he's like a freak about living forever.
Oh, really? Is it that guy who's transfusing his blood with his son? Or is that a different guy?
I don't know if he's doing that. I know he's like got like a hyperbaric chamber in his house or something.
Which
and,
those,
like,
I mean, those will help you live for a long
yeah,
time.
oh yeah, and he does like all kinds of like cryogenic stuff, and I'm pretty sure Walt Disney's still frozen somewhere, right?
You know, there's a conspiracy.
Of course, you know
Which
about
Disney
it.
has a lot of conspiracies, but the reason they made the movie Frozen was so that way when you would look up Disney Frozen, it wouldn't pull up
I feel like we just talked about this.
the stuff about
Or
Disney's
maybe
frozen
someone else-
body.
Maybe someone else told me about that.
And so that's why
Yeah.
allegedly they made the movie Frozen. So now when you look it up, it's very hard to find the stuff about Walt Disney's frozen body.
Interesting.
You know what else is interesting?
This ad.
This feature presentation brought to you by
Dun, da, da, da.
these guys. Listen, if you've been listening to Blanky Time for a while,
Yeah.
you already know what we're about to say.
That's right.
Okay. My, name, persona, business is Oak Nut Workshop.
Mm-hmm.
I make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you can think about it being custom made in any way, I can probably do it.
That's true.
So go check it out, Oak Nut Workshop, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, if you're still using Facebook. And then
you geezers.
oaknutworkshop.com. Wood, metal, leather, I do it all.
It's a good website name. Yeah. Also, if you've been listening, you should know by now that I'm the coffee guy, and Grateful Coffee is my thing, but it's also your thing, because together we can actually change the world with coffee.
Create a legacy.
Yeah, that's right. We're giving people opportunities to invest in others and live the story that we were all created for. Grateful.coffee on social media, and that's our website too. You can buy a bag of coffee. 100% of your purchase goes directly towards empowering people in rural Guatemalan communities by building communities, schools, programs, education deals, nutrition things, all the things. Grateful.coffee.
Get yourself some dirty beans.
Buy 'em.
Well, it's been a good talk. I didn't know it was maybe it was, the Holy Spirit giving me the topic idea, with recent events.
In Him we live and move and have our being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's true, because it was just like a really random thought.
Yeah, I was like, hey, what are we talking about? You're like death, and I was like, cool.
Anyway.
I do like. I mean, I don't like death, but I do tend to think about it a lot more than I think most people, and I think that's a good thing.
Depends on what kind of thinking about it you're doing.
Well, not the poor mental health, like we talked about before.
You have a healthy respect for it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like the Benedictine tradition, I feel like that's wise. Is like a daily reminders that remind us that it's coming. Like not in a morbid way, because that's I'm not painting my nails black and wearing a turtleneck or whatever.
Where are you? Was it Nickelback that has a song that's like, hold me now, 'cause I'm 6 feet on the edge and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't too far gone. You could have that played at your funeral.
No.
I actually, you know what? Put it in the record books.
Look,
that would hit. I want everybody rocking out.
Just so this is somewhere in the interwebs, when I die, I've requested John Bellion
perform?
Stupid Deep. No, I don't care if he performs.
What if he performed Stupid Deep at your funeral? Would you care?
I mean, yeah, if I die before him, that'd be dope.
I mean,
me and John are tight, so
you are?
Hopefully he'd do me a solid.
That's epic.
Yeah, he's a coffee fan, and I'm a coffee man, so it works. No. So, yeah, but I do think daily reminders are important, like memento mori,
Memento mori. It's a good one.
It's the thing, like, remember that you're going to die. And
Remember
it's going to
death.
put it in perspective, like, hey, if today's my last day, how am I going to treat it? How am I going to attack it? How am I going to live, love others? So that's helpful for me. What about you?
About what?
I don't know. How do you think about death? How often? What are some reminders that you...
I mean, probably either at least once a day, I think about, like, if I died now, would I be all right with it?
Yeah, you work pretty close to death on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is maybe, I was going through the mental charades of replaying a, what's the word? Here we go. Replaying just, I guess, a mental scene, because I used to do tree work, all right? Throwing stuff in chippers, dropping trees, all sorts of stuff. I used to play in my mind all the time, like getting snagged and getting drugged into the chipper or having something dropped on me. Because I've had branches lowered on top of me, and your life does flash before your eyes a little bit,
Yeah.
So I've had quite a bit of... that's not how you say that. I've thought about it a lot just because there's been multiple scenarios where something could have gone majorly wrong. And it's just a part of my work,
Right.
But I'm also, pretty easygoing. I think, Sarah, my wife, would be pretty distraught. But I would hope that, she would respect my death as I would respect my own if I was being introspective about it,
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I kind of already talked about, like, the having to see a dead guy, Funny story about death.
Okay.
At my grandma's funeral.
The casket fell over.
No, it was, my grandpa requested it to be open casket. Okay, bless his heart. So the whole time, everybody was getting a good front porch view.
Yeah.
And at the end, how, like, in a funeral, the family typically gets up first and goes over to the casket and then leaves, right? Yeah. And so we were in a line, and my aunt gets up, and we were next behind her. So, I'm like 4 foot away from her, and she's, kind of crying and has her tissue, and she touches my dead grandma's body's forehead and goes, "Oh, she's cold."
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah, you told me that before.
I was sad, but in that moment, I about chuckled too loudly because I was like 8 or 9 when she passed away.
It's gonna be hot. Like,
I was like, what do you think? What, a dead body is kind of unnervingly cold, because you're just used to, toasty boy.
Right.
But yeah, that's a kind of funny story. Maybe it's not funny to y'all, but it was funny to me.
Cringy. Wow. Well, I think we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
Death. The meaning of life.
Blankies.
Life after death.
Memento mori. Yeah, we got into the spiritual stuff more than I thought, which I don't know why I didn't think we'd talk about that more.
Yeah.
Given the nature of death and, if you believe in
life after
extra
death?
Spiritual Hudenheisens. So,
yeah,
it was a good time.
It was good.
So while you're on this earth,
get yourself some Blanky time.
Get yourself some Blanky time.
I like that.
And enjoy the company of others, because you may not have it forever.
That's right, man. That's right. Life is short.
Yeah.
Get some Blanky.
Blanky time.
Blanky time.
Out.
Adios.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Tune in next week for an even more exciting video.
Less depressing.
Brought to you by WNZ The Blank.
Let's get out of here.